this morning. And yes, I know I look very much like Roy Orbison in these glasses. Not quite Roy Orbison, but welcome back to the program. It's a pleasure to have you join me once again. It's Wednesday, August 14th, 2024. And let's get on with our conversation and talk about what's happening around the world. Sorry, that's kind of distracting hearing that in there because I don't hear myself talking. So anyway, can folks hear me? Is there anybody out there? Give me a 5 by if you can actually hear me. Is anybody hearing me? Let me know. Let me know if you hear me, okay? I think you should hear me, but there's no comments coming in. It's just, I think, one person there at the moment, so it's going to be hard to actually get answers. So there's somebody chatting. Okay. Hello? Okay. So Teresa, can you hear me okay? Because I've got the Bluetooth in. I just want to make sure you can hear me before I go on. Okay, a couple more people showing up. Somebody give me a heads up there. Anyway. Must sound pretty silly when you watch this after it's over, and me asking if people can actually hear me and getting no response. Anyway, can you hear me? If you can't hear me, can you tell me? This is like pulling teeth, man. I'm guessing only one person wants to comment. Well, I'll go on as if I actually have a connection here. I don't know if we do. Okay, thank you, Dylan. Appreciate that. Excellent. There's Teresa, thumbs up. Okay, and that's a long delay here. Between what I say and what you hear. I didn't realize it's such a long delay. Somebody ran over. Ran over a stick there. Sounded like he hit something. Hey, welcome back to everybody that's in the chat there. So we did the news this morning, and I thought I'd talk a little bit more about some more news items that not focused on South Africa, just one or two in the U.S. But hey, Ulrich, how's it going? So let me. I'm going to talk about a topic that I discussed earlier this morning. Teresa, Dylan, Smee again, Debaram, Gina Moorman, and Ulrich Fenter so far, plus a few others. Thanks for being here, folks. Be sure to smash the like button. It's right below there. Now, the funny thing is that some of you watch this on mobile, and I'm usually broadcasting from my studio unless I'm traveling. Well, I am kind of traveling today for consulting, so I'm doing this off my mobile. Hey there, Chris. It's Colonel Willem Skeppers. Well, hey, Colonel Willem Skeppers. Pleasure to chat with you there. Yeah, so this morning I talked about, Chantel, welcome. I talked this morning about people hanging out over here instead of going to lunch. Talked this morning about the concept that the Times Premium ran an op-ed arguing that the government should be subsidizing or funding Olympic athletes, and I take exception to that. Now, amongst Africans, I'm sure I'm in a minority because people seem to think that the role of government is to provide everything for you. The only way government can provide everything for someone is if they steal it from someone else and then redistribute it to you. If you think that's morally acceptable, then we're on different political planes. I don't think it's morally acceptable for the government to take my money and give it to favored causes. I think it's responsibility of the government to ensure a level playing field so that everyone can succeed or fail on their own merits. Anyway, so the Times Alive talked about this. Now, this came about because Kate McKenzie has made the ludicrous promise that the government of South Africa, which means the few taxpayers that actually are going to reimburse the parents of the javelin bronze medalist because her family had to scrimp together money to travel to go to France on vacation to watch. Hey, Courtney, it's been ages. I wonder where you've been. They had to scrimp together money to go to Paris to see their daughter in the javelin competition. Now, I don't know about you and me, but I know what I can say is that I really don't think it's the role of government to finance people's holidays. That's just not the role of government. The government's to ensure a level playing field. So it seems to me to be a bit unfair that the government of South Africa would fund her parents' trip to, is her name Joanne or something like that, to fund her parents' trip to France to watch her. That's not their role. I mean, we're not even talking about funding Olympic athletes' training or equipment or kit. That's a whole other issue. And you know, some people argue there's merit to governments doing that, but there's certainly no merit to the government paying for Mama Joy to go on vacation or to pay for the parents of, you know, a competitor. I mean, you know, in South Africa, I'm shocked that we haven't already heard that that's racist because, I mean, after all, she's white. Why does she get that special privilege? Aren't white people privileged in South Africa? I mean, that's what I've been told. I mean, black supremacists have been telling me that for years. So I'm really not sure what's going on there. But there's been a backlash of sorts. This is a clickbait headline. I don't think it's a backlash, but this article ran earlier today. It says, backlash as Botswana requests money for Olympic heroes. Now, let me put something in perspective very quickly. A sports performance does not make you a hero. Michael Jordan was not a hero. No, not a hero. The Olympic basketball team are not heroes. Olympic athletes are not heroes or heroines. They are athletes. Someone who jumps on a grenade thrown into an encampment to save their comrades is a hero. Someone that rushes into a burning building to rescue a child or a pet is a hero. Someone who risks their life, their fortune, their freedom, their fame is a hero, not an athlete. Athletes are not heroes. This is ridiculous. Ridiculous, ridiculous, ridiculous. I'm so sick of the misuse of this word. It's been going on for nigh on 4 decades now, calling sports icons. They can be icons, but they are not heroes. A hero does something heroic. Winning the 200 meters is not heroic. It was impressive, it was incredible for Letsile Tebogo, but it was not heroic, and that's the wrong term. So let's just get rid of that. Now, this article says people in Botswana have reacted with outrage on social media after the government asked citizens to donate money to reward the country's historic gold medal winning Olympic team. Well, the team did not win an Olympic gold medal. It was Tebogo who won the gold medal. The team won medals, 4 medals to be exact, a gold, silver, and 2 bronze, but the team did not win a gold. An individual won the gold. Now, the fund would be a way for citizens to honor athletes by contributing towards our champions, according to a press statement by the government released on Monday. But the government's request for donations has halted celebrations for some people who are stingy, and they question why their taxes aren't being used to reward Olympians. Now, this is ridiculous. So, we are already paying tax. Give our champions money from the government purse, raised one user on Facebook. Now, that person is, I'm sorry, just a fool. Why in the world should, if I'm a Botswana, why should I pay for an Olympic athlete to have the privilege of traveling around the world and competing and winning a gold medal? Why should I be paying for that out of my tax dollars? Now, if I want to donate money and volunteer on my own accord, that's a completely different story. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that should be encouraged. That's how we should fund Olympic athletes and teams and equipment and kit. So, no, this is completely wrong. We're already paying tax. Why don't we pay this from the government purse? There is no government purse. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no government purse. Government does not have money. Government is not in business to make money. Government is in business to confiscate wealth from citizens to give to other people so they can get reelected. There you go. And if it's not a democratic country, government is in the business of confiscating wealth from one group of people to give to another group of people to keep things calm so they can remain in control. That's what the role of government is. There's no government purse. There's no government budget. That's money stolen from citizens every year. Now, you're going to say, but that's a bit too harsh, Chris. Government needs money to function. Sure, within its realm of responsibility. Here in the United States, most things that the federal government is involved in are outside its remit. It does not have any authority to have a Department of Education. It has no authority for a host of government functions like the Environmental Protection Agency. They have no remit for that. They have exceeded their authority under the Constitution. It is unconstitutional, it's illegitimate, and it is disgraceful. But they get away with it because we have a country full of uninformed, politically ignorant citizens and tens of millions of criminal alien invaders who are trying to vote. All right, let me see what's in the chat here. All right, what did I miss here? Pay for training support. Who paid for the training support, Pierre? Gate McKenzie has made a public statement that he will reimburse the parents who travel to Paris. Who's that? Clive, welcome to it. Well, but one would argue that Michael Jordan has contributed a lot more to society. That doesn't make him a hero for playing basketball. If you want to claim Michael Jordan is heroic because of things he's done in communities, you can make the argument, but I'm going to argue that's not heroic. That is noteworthy, and that makes him a good person, but that doesn't make him heroic. On this, you're right. Wrong from Assisi to do this and say this. No, you're completely wrong, Icono. You're missing what I'm saying. Assisi is saying that people should donate money, and that's exactly what I'm saying. The government shouldn't be paying for this. Okay. Well, maybe I'm right, or maybe we are saying the same thing. Sorry. It's too windy out here. The wind's affecting my chat reading. Some athletes like Akani and Tatiana are part of a sponsored program paying for coaches, all bells and whistles, get athlete ready for competition. Yes, that's exactly my point, Teresa. Is that something funded by the taxpayer? Why does Tatiana Schumacher, or Smith, as she now is called, here comes another small light aircraft flying over it. Why does she get special privilege and not some black athlete or some colored athlete or some boy instead of some girl? Why? You want to explain that to me? Assuming she gets it from the government. Stay curious. Hi, everyone, from Elysium. Okay, I thought that was a movie, Elysium. Hey, how's it going, Debbie? I haven't seen you in a few days. Grasshopper. Makes him a philanthropist. Thank you, Grasshopper. That's the correct term. Not a hero, a philanthropist. That's correct. And Hester's here, too. Unlike LeBron James, who's a leftist and woke instrument. Yeah, no, he's a shill for the Chinese Communist Party. Hey, Sandy, how's it going? Drink a little iced tea here rather than a frappuccino. It makes him a philanthropist, not a hero. Sports figures are not heroes. That irritates me. That irritates me no end. Surgeons can be heroes. There can be people who do heroic things that are not in uniform, but certainly not athletes. So, now despite that, now this is a clickbait headline because not everybody complained. Overcoming the hacking of my system, Chris, been a nightmare. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear about that, Debbie. Wow, or I didn't remember it. I think I would have remembered that. But despite the objection by some to the fund, there have been some voices in support of the Olympic reward pot. One person enthusiastically suggests the fund should be open for anyone across the continent to send money. Well, I would agree. I mean, I should be able to send money if I want. He says, open it to all Africans. I want to contribute from Kenya. Well, maybe I want to contribute to the United States. Sports person out here, we should call them icons or philanthropists, perhaps. Yeah, icon is right. Icon is the right term. So, now let's continue on with Botswana news. The government is cutting spending on cars and travel as the diamond slump continues. We are being lied to by government officials around the world claiming that the economy is great. Things are great. But China's economy is in a crapper. America's economy is in the crapper. 169,000 jobs created in July. In the summertime, that's a joke. That should be 600,000 or 700,000 easy in an economy with 190 million jobs, folks. Yeah, interest rates 5-6% to borrow to get a house, 7-8% for a car, 10% for a personal loan. I mean, that's not a healthy economy. That's an economy in distress, and they're lying. And now I found out today that the Biden-Harris regime has been manipulating Medicare payments to keep payments artificially low by subsidizing with federal tax dollars, and it's going to jump after the election. Yeah. So that people don't lose their minds over Biden-Harris's failure to get things done. This is part of the Inflation Reduction Act nonsense. It's going to kill us. There's no inflation reduction. It's inflation cooked in. Courtney says, what do you think of the future USPS if Trump wins? So I think the Postal Service is going to go away, but Trump will probably find somebody next and has that run a Postal Service. I mean, if UPS and DHL and others can make money with packages and express letters, the Postal Service can make money with better management. All right, I can see that, but what I'm saying is for the rest of the teams, how they got sponsored with support, I believe is what Gate is referring to. I don't really understand where you're going, Pierre. The South African Olympic Committee is remiss in its failure to get corporate donations and get private donations to support Olympic athletes in their training and so on. Just like the South African Rugby Union has failed demonstrably to expand rugby to youth across the country in historically disadvantaged communities. If they spread the game around like that, and the Curry Cup teams and the URC teams should be giving free tickets out when they have empty cavernous stadiums to school groups and young rugby players. I mean, not have it for them, but you should do it occasionally to spur interest in the sport. But they just fail epically because they have no vision whatsoever for tomorrow, 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years down the road. It takes a visionary, someone who thinks ahead, who comes up with plans and has leadership ability. Someone like me. Anyway, that's my point, Chris. My granddaughter's the third year running South Africa, long jumper and African game mindset, all paid by parent herself. Exactly, Teresa, paid by yourself. But there should be, that's what Olympic committees are supposed to be for. That's what athletic federations are supposed to exist for. They're supposed to be not-for-profit organizations existing to set the guidelines, the rules, the standards, and then raise money. I mean, we have Little League Baseball all over the place. We have American Legion Baseball. We have athletics here, and it's all done not by the government. The whole wide world's in recession, I agree. How's it going with incursions into Russia? Well, it's going okay for the Ukrainians, but they're going to overdo it, and they're going to create a salient with this bulge going into the Kursk region, and that's going to make them very vulnerable to attacks on their flanks, which pinch off and isolate, and then they'll be annihilated, just like the Nazis did during their Second World War. The Wehrmacht and the SS coming in and bypassing Soviet formations, encircling them, and then mulching them down piecemeal and just destroying them. That's what's going to happen. This salient will be isolated unless the Ukrainians spread the front, which they failed to do in the week they've been inside Kursk. And the press and who's going to watch sports? Chief prosecutor issued an arrest warrant for the Ukrainian man accused of participating in blowing. Oh, really? I didn't see that, Icano. Which chief prosecutor? Oh, German chief prosecutor. Okay, thank you for that. Did read with those colored blinkers. Huh? Good evening, Diane. Welcome back. Need time to catch up on all the streams where you're situated, Chris. Nice to see you enjoying outdoors. I'm not enjoying it. It's kind of bright out here. The weather's nice, though. I'll give you that. Allison, hello. All right. So Botswana is still seeing a slump in diamonds, is going to take a prudent step, which is what Ian Kama did in 2008, 2009, when the global financial crisis happened. He took prudent steps like this, delayed capital projects, like the Defense Command Staff College wasn't built. They leased a primary school because they didn't have the funds to build a whole new building until after the market recovered. And they took a $2 billion loan from international lenders because they had such good credit and had very favorable terms. So their budget revenue for the first quarter of this fiscal year is 28% lower than what they projected because diamond sales are down. This is what happens when the economy becomes over-reliant on one resource or one source of funding. Mining is overwhelming the source of hard currency and the government's budget in Botswana, and diamonds specifically are the biggest contribution to that. But there's also nickel and other things, coal. It's the world's largest producer of rough diamonds by value, not by weight or carat, but by value. The Jwaneng mine still produces some of the best gemstones on the planet. The Botswana plans to reduce spending on new vehicles and travel for government officials and may delay some capital projects to deal with the slump in diamond revenues, according to their finance minister. The same path that Ian Kama's government took years ago. But of course, it's taken Masisi a full 4 years to have this realization, because he's not that bright. Former Zambian First Lady Maureen Mwanawasa has passed away at the age of 61. She succumbed late yesterday after a short illness at a hospital in the capital of Lusaka. Now, the former First Lady was married to the country's third president, Levi Mwanawasa, who served as president from 2002 until he died in office in 2008, when he was succeeded by a white dude for a couple months until the election took place. She was trained as a lawyer, and she was an active advocate for social justice, what a stupid phrase, community development, and public health issues. In 2016, she ran unsuccessfully to be mayor of the capital of Lusaka, and she's passed away at the age of 61, nearly 20 years after her spouse died. Zambia is going to reopen its border with Democratic Republic of Congo. The DRC border is reopening after it was sealed for a weekend due to protest. It blocked a key export route for the world's second largest copper producer. Now, this is a joint statement issued by both countries on Monday. The border, which was closed following an announcement by Zambian Trade Minister Chipoka Mulenga on Saturday, reopened yesterday, according to a separate statement from Congo's trade industry. Thailand's Prime Minister Srettha Thavisin has been removed from office in a court ruling that has shaken the world. A court removing the Prime Minister. Interesting. They've been gunning for him for some time now. Thailand's Prime Minister Srettha Thavisin has been removed from office after a court ruled he violated the Constitution in a shock decision that plunges the kingdom into further political uncertainty. The verdict comes a week after the same court dissolved the country's popular progressive Move Forward Party, which won most of the seats in this year's election, and then they were dissolved. They banned their leaders from politics for 10 years after they won the election. Is that democratic? Is that just? Is that fair? The Constitutional Court in Bangkok ruled today that Srettha, a real estate tycoon and relative political newcomer, had breached ethics rules by appointing a lawyer who had served prison time to his cabinet. Now, 5 of the court's 9 judges voted to dismiss Srettha and his cabinet, ruling the Prime Minister was well aware that he appointed a person who seriously lacked moral integrity. Now, a new government's going to have to be formed, and the ruling Pheu Thai-led coalition will nominate a new candidate for Prime Minister, which will be voted on by the 500-seat parliament, which no longer includes the Move Forward Party. Speaking to reporters after the decision, Srettha said he performed his duties as Prime Minister as best he could and said he accepts the verdict. He added that he was unsure whether the next government would continue with his policies. I doubt they will. Let me see what else has come up in the chat. The current Postmaster General is a Trump appointee, okay? In July, Trump's chance of winning the election was 72%. Now it's 46%. Well, we'll see. Long way to November. Long way to November. Why doesn't Botswana become a big banking hub in Africa? Well, that's a good question, Icano, and that's exactly the argument I've been making to Botswana for 24 years. But I don't have much influence. I don't live there anymore, and I don't have access to government officials on a regular basis. Also, I don't think the officials running Botswana, most of them are really interested in improving Botswana. They're interested in rapaciously getting with their cut out of Botswana. So in 2000, since 2000, I've been making the argument that Botswana should do the following. Number one, they should become a banking hub for Africa and for the globe. It takes longer for it to be the globe, but it could be for Africa early on. A stable currency, a strong economy, largely free of corruption at that time. It's a good decision. So they should focus on banking. They should focus on insurance. They should also focus on IT. They should be foster an IT hub, information technology hub for software writers, for code writers, for, at the time in 2000, web development, and for e-services, for cloud services, which came along later. I advocated for all that. And in addition to that, Botswana should be exploiting its coal bed methane resources. And they should have been building power plants with hundreds of megawatts of generation capacity in 2000, 2005, 2010, 2015, 2020. Had Botswana done that, there would have been no load shedding in South Africa, and Botswana would have been making serious coin from exporting electricity through the Southern African power pool to South Africa, Namibia, Zimbabwe, and elsewhere. They would have been making coin. But instead, they sat on their hands, they did jack squat about increasing that, and waited until about 2012 when they finally put a tender out, and then they came up with this plant in Rola or where it's at, which is built by the Chinese and is only at 30% capacity despite the fact that they spent a lot of money on it. So why was that tender done? Well, my suspicion is corruption and money went in people's pockets instead of getting a proper company from Canada, the US, or France, or Japan to build that power plant. So now they're stuck with that crap. And instead of building coal-fired power plants, or better yet, coal bed methane, Botswana has huge coal bed methane resources. They have more coal than they could burn in 4 centuries. They could also be exporting coal to China. If only. Well, that's going to be a little hard because the railroads are destroyed in South Africa, but that was the case before the South African government allowed its country to be pilfered by criminals. But that's what Botswana should be doing. All the things I just said, and I've been advocating for a long time, but people don't listen. They have done a little bit of that. They've got a tech school there through a university in Indonesia, or Malaysia, excuse me. Yeah, so we'll see. So the Bangladeshi PM has been resigned, the Thai PM has been dismissed, and now the Japanese guy. Yeah, isn't that interesting, Kano? I don't think anybody's connecting those dots. Japan, Thailand, and Bangladesh. Who's next? Indonesia? Yeah. Sorry, I would have stayed. Crab, prawn, mussel chow. Okay. All right, Pierre, sorry to see you go. Diane says, agreed. Her parents' travel is no business of government. I am a bit behind, so maybe you've moved on commenting on javelin thrower. No, that's what I was talking about. That's when I started the program. Talking about her. Gate McKenzie has said that her father's expenses, their family's expenses, travel to France will be reimbursed by the Ministry of Sports, Arts, and Culture. That's not their place to do that. Why should they get to go on vacation to France? I mean, I wanted to go to the Olympics. We're going to pay my way? It's ridiculous. The fact that I don't have a child in the Olympics doesn't mean I don't want one. Doesn't mean I don't aspire to have a child performing the Olympics. Good morning, Eric. Day is going okay. Well, it's midday now. So Botswana have access to U.S. Well, yes, it does. Botswana is in the African Growth and Opportunity Act and has duty-free access to the United States. There's a handful of businesses that take advantage of it, a handful. Tried to interview one of the business owners that's actually exporting things to the U.S., and they were flaky. They blew me off, so screw them. You know, there's a chance to get some free publicity. Botswana got more coal. Oh yeah, Botswana's got tons of coal. There's tons of coal in Botswana. There's tons of minerals in Botswana. It's not just diamonds. There's nickel. We had a Toddy nickel mine. It was up there near Francistown for a long time. The Thule block has never really been exploited for minerals. It's mostly unused, and the Kalahari's got tons of stuff out there. Yep. Good evening, Eric. All right, so let me continue. Now, this one I find a bit disturbing. Germany today condemned a visit by 2 Israeli ministers to the Temple Mount. saying it expects the Israeli government to halt deliberate provocations. It is a deliberate provocation of a Jew to go to the Temple Mount, a site desecrated by Islam, by Muslims. That's not a provocation. People practicing their faith. Speaking to reporters after the, that's not it. Yeah, we reject unilateral steps that jeopardize the historical status quo of the holy sites in Jerusalem, the German Foreign Ministry said on Twitter. The historical status quo is that both faiths practice their faith there. I've been to the Temple Mount. I've put a message in the wall. Eric Prince, founder and former CEO of Blackwater. I don't have an. Actually, I'm don't really have an opinion. I don't know much about Eric Prince, so I don't really have much of a view on that. Blackwater, just another company. People make much more out of it than they thought it was. So Yemen's Houthis have seized the United Nations office in Sana'a, the capital. Yemen's Houthi rebels stormed the headquarters of the UN Human Rights Office back on August 3rd, seizing documents, furniture, and vehicles. Rebels took over the office on the premises after forcing UN Yemeni workers to hand over belongings, including documents, furniture, and vehicles. This according to United Nations Human Rights Chief Volker Turk in a statement. Well, why did they wait until today, 10 days later, to tell us that happened? Maybe it was a safety issue for their employees. I don't know. Anglo-American and De Beers probably heavily invested then in Botswana. This would make sense. De Beers is heavily invested through Deb Swana. I don't know about Anglo-American how much. There's a lot of other companies. There's a Canadian company, a diamond company, which I bought penny stocks in. They're worth less than I paid for them, even though the company's making money. That's the one that keeps finding all those huge diamonds in Botswana. They leased a mine that the government gave them rights to that was no longer being used because they claimed that they had mined it out. Well, they use different methods, and they keep coming up with these massive diamonds and huge stones coming up, and they're making a fortune. But there's several companies operating there. Boo, UN boo. The United States and Ukraine claim that Russia has moved troops from Ukraine to fight the incursion by Ukraine into the Kursk region. Moscow has begun withdrawing some troops from Ukraine in an effort to repel Kiev's offensive into western Russia, according to U.S. and Ukraine officials, but it remains unclear what impact, if any, this might have on the overall battlefield. Dmitry Likihovi, a spokesman for the Ukrainian army, told the Ukrainian news media yesterday that Russia had moved some units from the southern Ukrainian fronts of Zaporizhia and Dnipro to other areas of fighting, including the Kursk region, where the incursion has been taking place. A U.S. official speaking on condition of anonymity to discuss sensitive security matters said that Russia had pulled out small numbers of troops from Ukraine, but did not specify the location or the number of soldiers involved. Now, we don't know who this is and who's responsible. We know who it is, but we don't know what the affiliation, what's going on. We don't know the person's legal status either. But I'm willing to bet that the person was not a legal immigrant with leave to remain to be in the UK. Now, leave to remain is like a green card. Yes, does not invest their time in banking. They'll be fumbling big time. Does Kama agree with becoming? Yes, he does. And also the IT stuff that I talked about. He made moves to get them there, but he had a lot of other fish to fry because of the financial crisis, which really became the primary focus for him when he took over. And then the behavior of Mugabe in Zimbabwe was another distraction at that time. Also, Eskom began load shedding and cutting the power to Botswana, so we had load shedding going on. We had global financial crisis and protecting Botswana's economy from collapse, and then finally Zimbabwe's actions, all of which distracted him from the things he really wanted to work on. Lease mine that was unproductive, now lucrative. It's not growing anywhere. It's Lucara is the company. You can look them up. Lucara, L-U-C-A-R-A. It's a Canadian company, and I bought Canadian penny stocks because I wanted to say I owned a diamond mine. I wanted to say that I was a diamond mine owner, and all it's done is cost me money. Yeah, I have shares in Lucara, and they're going nowhere. It's in my retirement account. At least I think that's where it's at. Anyway, so back to the story at hand. A man was accused of stabbing an 11-year-old girl in London's bustling theater district. He was charged yesterday with attempted murder. Yon Pintaru put the girl in a headlock and stabbed her 8 times, seriously wounding her. The girl was hospitalized and required plastic surgery for wounds to her face, shoulder, wrist, and neck. The attack happened at 11:30 in the morning in Leicester Square, a hot tourism spot outside a shop that sells tea. A shop that sells tea in London. Surprise, surprise. Now, an employee of the tea shop and other bystanders jumped on the suspect and held him to the ground until police arrived. A steak knife was recovered. I remember Khan, the mayor of London, who didn't want weapons, no guns. Then they wanted to take knives. Well, knives are being used to assault and murder Londoners. Pintaru, 32, a Romanian citizen, also faces a knife charge, was held in custody. He's ordered to appear on the 10th of September at the Old Bailey. That's the Central Criminal Court. Yeah, so we have another stabbing in London of a young girl. We don't know, based on the surname, I don't know if the person is a radicalized Muslim or whatever. He's certainly a Romanian, according to this. Don't know if he has leave to remain to even be in the UK. We know that tons of Romanians are illegally in the UK, tens of thousands. So, folks, that plane that went down in Brazil, that horrifying stall where the plane spun out of control until it hit. A young lady was on that flight and she was texting, and now they've revealed her text. Rosana Santos Xavier, who was 23, had just boarded the ill-fated flight on her way home from a work trip last Friday when she started sending ominous messages to her family's WhatsApp group, according to local television outlet Globo. This is what she said. Man, 2 hours of flight. We're going to arrive in the rain. I'm also scared of this flight. I swear this plane is old. Well, that was prophetic. Seconds later, she added, there's a broken seat. I swear, chaos. Then she sent a final stony-faced selfie of herself sitting on board the plane. That's terrible. Her final moments recorded before the plane went down. Now, I don't know if this was when the plane was on the ground or it was already in the air. It must have been when it was on the ground. Now, despite the plane coming down to residential area, this is shocking because we saw it coming down to residential area and we saw the video posted moments after this tragedy occurred as we watched the plane circling a drain, spiraling like this. No one on the ground was killed. No one on the ground was killed. That's amazing. No one is even injured on the ground. It's absolutely amazing because the plane just hit and just disintegrated in one spot. Unbelievable. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. Yeah, imagine that, Debbie, their family's final memories of her. On the flip side, for the young lady, at least they heard from her and they weren't just left wondering, you know. Well, let's see. Brit Hume just posted something on Twitter. Found out what happened with that Australian breakdancer. They were supposed to enter her. I don't think so. I don't think so. Yeah, it's shocking to stab a defenseless human being, especially a little girl. What is wrong with people? Hope they will. I hope Masisi, or the next leader of BDP, will engage in this. Well, the BDP may not be in power. They're in serious chance of actually losing power for the first time. Yep. So a judge has ordered the University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA, to ensure equal access to Jewish students after pro-Palestinian protest. A federal judge yesterday admonished the University of California, Los Angeles for its handling of pro-Palestinian encampments and ordered the university to ensure equal access to Jewish students, 3 of whom alleged in a lawsuit that the university enabled protesters to block Jews from parts of campus because of their faith, which they did. Anti-Semitic Jew haters. In issuing his preliminary injunction, U.S. District Judge Mark Scarsi sided with the students, whose June suit said the university helped enforce a Jew exclusion zone on campus during pro-Palestinian protests when UCLA erected bike rack barriers around an encampment. Also, the suit alleged that UCLA hired security guards who allowed protesters to cross into the encampment, but not Jews. No Jewish students were allowed in. In the year 2024, in the United States of America, in the state of California, and the city of Los Angeles, Jewish students were excluded from portions of the UCLA campus because they refused to denounce their faith. This fact is so unimaginable and so abhorrent to our constitutional guarantee of religious freedom that it bears repeating. Jewish students were excluded from portions of the UCLA campus because they refused to denounce their faith. This is the state of our universities, of our media in this country. Something ni vida, never again, we've said, after the Holocaust and the murders of the Sinti and the Romani and Russian prisoners of war and others, laborers, by the Nazi regime. Ni vida. Yet it's happening again. We are headed down the same path. And in Minnesota, the anti-Israel, Jew-hating Minnesotans voted into the Democratic primary last night. One of the worst, disgusting, most vile politicians in the United States history, Ilhan Omar, won her primary in a convincing fashion last night by 56 to 42%. Minnesotans, fond of exclusion behavior, excluding Jews. The judge's order gives University of California, Los Angeles 2 days, so today and tomorrow, to instruct UCLA police, security, and student affairs that they are not to aid or participate in obstruction or access for Jewish students to ordinarily available programs, activities, and campus areas. That coincides with orientation for the law school's fall semester. Undergraduate fall quarter classes begin in September. So the law school begins on Friday or Monday. So apparently that's what's going on. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I reported on this yesterday, but it gets even worse. More information is coming out. Now that the statute of limitations is expiring on the crimes or the alleged crimes of Hunter Biden, now the Department of Justice is pursuing this. Of course, all who get hit with is tax violations. Hunter Biden sought U.S. government help for a Ukrainian company, Burisma. Hunter Biden wrote to then U.S. Ambassador to Rome on behalf of the energy firm while his father was vice president. I don't know why he's writing to Rome. Maybe the guy was close to Biden. Hunter Biden lobbied the U.S. government for help in securing lucrative energy contract, in Italy, while his father, Joe Biden, was vice president. Newly released documents show quid pro quo. There was, to quote George Herbert Walker Bush, who said there was no quid pro quo. There was quid pro quo here. This for that. The corrupt Biden crime family, complicit in influence peddling, wealthy because of influence peddling, and their crimes hidden from the public, from the courts, until the statute of limitations expire and Joe Biden, the demented fool that he is no longer running. A tranche of previously undisclosed documents have now been made public under a Freedom of Information Act request, a FOIA request, reveals that the president's son wrote to then U.S. Ambassador to Rome, John Phillips. What the hell is that? Oh, somebody's rolling something to the dumpster. That is loud. In 2016, seeking assistance on behalf of the Ukrainian energy company Burisma, of which he was a board member. The request revealed in documents issued by the United States Department of State following a protracted effort by the New York Times seeking the release, which lasted 3 years. The State Department held on to these documents for 3 years in order for the statute of limitation to expire. The State Department officials should be charged for their criminal acts. I worked in the U.S. government, and when a Freedom of Information Act came in, we had like 60 days to respond to it. The State Department fobbed this off for 3 years so the statute of limitations could expire and he couldn't be charged with a crime. Never mind the fact what happened his first term. Minnesota should implement Sharia law. I don't think so. What about the Romans? Why does everyone forget what they did? What are you talking about specifically? My God has got me in trouble too much. Okay. You guys are all being silly here in the chat, some of you. Icona says, why does USA allow BlackRock to invest in the People's Liberation Army? What evidence do you have that BlackRock invests in the People's Liberation Army? That's an open-ended question. You've offered no evidence of it. I'm not going to respond to it because you haven't shown me that they have. Saw on YouTube a grade 10 learner, shocking death at Overberg High School. Bodies found in school. Yeah, I reported on that, Lynette, a couple days ago. I've already covered that story. There's been several learners who've been dying. Learners is what they say in South Africa. School kids. Just had a school kid die, drowning, another one. It's crazy what's going on. Everything happened before yesterday. It's in the past, says Dylan. Yeah. Anyway, so, yeah, Hunter Biden, yep, sought government assistance to get contracts for his company, Burisma, so because Daddy was the vice president. Yeah, that's a felony crime, but apparently has a short statute of limitations. So now that it's expired, the State Department is finally releasing the information in a Freedom of Information request, a FOIA request, which should have been released 3 years ago. And by the way, the interesting part about this is the FOIA request, ladies and gentlemen, comes from the New York Times. The New York Times is actually doing its job as the three states, the different, three plus the fourth. The fourth is the media. The role of the media is to hold government accountable and to inform the public, not to affect and, sorry, that's very distracting. Give me a second here. The dumpsters are here. The guy left the lid open of the dumpster. When I get up, I'll have to go close it, remember. So the role of the fourth estate is to hold the government accountable and to inform the public, not to influence elections. And we see this every day with the fake news coming from the legacy media. I mean, we see this already with the lies. Okay, so let me cover this. I talked about this with a few folks, and I don't recall if I talked about this in my broadcast, but Here's what's, I think I might have talked about this morning, so on my broadcast, but if I didn't, for those who are here, it's a larger audience than this morning, and it'll be more people that don't show up for both broadcasts. Donald Trump went into a hostile arena when he spoke to the Black Journalists Association. Now, the fact that we have a Black Journalists Association is shocking and disgusting. Why do you need a Black Journalists Association? There are black journalists everywhere. I mean, almost every face on television is black, in the news, everywhere. The media, the fake journalists who go to the White House press corps who ask asinine questions as propagandists and not as journalists are black. If there was a white journalist association, people lose their minds. It's racist. It's no less racist to have a black journalist association. But Donald Trump went to there. They invited him. He went. He answered their questions, even though they set him up and he was dumb enough to fall for it about Harris's ethnicity. But he went to it. He answered their questions. He was there. They made him wait. The former president of the United States, they made him wait because they were incompetent, couldn't get their act together with a Zoom call. Zoom is very simple, folks. Very simple. I've never had a problem with Zoom for the most part, even with software updates. So he answered their questions in a hostile environment. 26 days later, after becoming the presumptive demon rat nominee, we have yet to see Kamala Harris give a press conference or sit down to answer interviews. She hasn't done it. Donald Trump went to a hostile place. There's no discussion of it. They didn't say anything. The whole focus was on the setup that he walked into, the stupid trap that he was dumb enough to walk into about, her ethnicity. That's what it was all about. And talk about how it was courageous of him to go there and how he discussed policy and how he answered their questions. But quite frankly, what I would have done if I was Donald Trump when they pulled that crap, when they said, they just jumped in. So you're not convinced that Kamala Harris is black, and why is that? This is what my response would have been. Excuse me? What does that have to do with this discussion? You asked me to come here and answer questions, presumably about policy and what I hope to achieve in the next administration and compare it with the current administration. What does Kamala Harris's self-identification have to do with that? Why are you talking about her identity? Why are you race hustling? I came here to talk about policy. If you want to talk about policy, we'll talk about policy. If you want to talk about whether Kamala Harris is black or Indian or Blasian, you need to talk to Kamala Harris. Or the Census Bureau. That's not my responsibility. That's the response that Donald Trump should have given. That's what you do with this. That's how you address it. Head on. First crack went well. Rest of them goes well. That's how you should address it. Anyway, so he went there. He gets no credit for that. Then he goes on at Elon Musk, and the response from the Harris campaign is, self-obsessed rich guys. Really? Elon Musk extended an invitation for you to come onto Twitter space, and you haven't accepted it. And you just ignore the fact that if he's so self-obsessed, why did he go into a hostile environment with the Black Journalists Association and honestly answer their questions? So he's not self-obsessed. You're just a whiny little biatch. Harris campaign. It's nothing new that BlackRock doing. It does wonder why. Okay, again, you're making an unfounded statement. Don't make an unfounded statement because I'm not going to answer it. Go give me some information. Tell me what BlackRock has done. What are people so afraid of BlackRock? This is the typical nonsense. Sorry, there's a bee here, or a wasp. The typical nonsense, yellow jacket, I think it is. Typical nonsense that comes with these things. BlackRock, Blackwater. Come on. What is BlackRock? BlackRock is an investment company that takes investors' money and invests it into the equivalent of mutual funds or closed-end funds to make their investors wealthier and take fees off of that. People act like BlackRock is some sort of evil empire that, BlackRock sponsored this, BlackRock does this. It's a freaking mutual fund, essentially. What is the problem? No one's talking about Fidelity. No one's complaining about Vanguard. Why not? I don't understand this. BlackRock is a publicly available company. The information's there. You can look at what they're invested in. And what they're invested in isn't theirs. BlackRock doesn't have, that's the thing that kills me. Oh, BlackRock. What do you think they are? Just a venture capital firm that has billions of dollars and takes over companies? That's not what they are. That's what Colcourt, Kravis, and Roberts is. That's what Sequoia Capital is. That is not what BlackRock is. I don't get this obsession with BlackRock. Oh, this is uninformed. And I'm not attacking Econo, but at some point this conversation becomes drivel. It's nonsense. What is this obsession with BlackRock? Give me some facts. Give me some facts. I'll deal in facts, not on supposition and false assumptions. Romans built those pyramids over granite structures is why they fell apart. The Romans didn't build the pyramids. What pyramids are you talking about? The pyramids were built thousands of years before the Romans even existed. I don't know what you're talking about, man. I'm a little confused by that one. applied for a government job to lift standards and train young professionals. No way. You have, instead of be MicroStrategy, good guys. Do not call them evil, but I do know Vanguard, BlackRock, and State Street have astronomical amounts of assets. Yes, they do. They do. They have it from investors, Americans and those overseas who are trying to. That's why I want to make sure the distinction. I wasn't attacking you, Icon. I want to make sure people understood that. But this is something that comes up frequently. It hasn't come up recently in my chat, but it came up a lot a few months ago. People are always attributing things to BlackRock, like there's some freaking out of control third entity, non-state entity. It's the same thing people are always doing with with multinational corporations. Ooh, there are real legitimate complaints about multinational corporations and how they exercise their operations and how they're taxed, where they operate from, where they incorporate. Those are legitimate complaints. But people always attribute things that are just nonsense. This isn't banana diplomacy from Banana Republic diplomacy from the 1920s, 30s, 40s, and 50s in Latin America, where U.S. corporations basically ran countries on, not the dictators who are in charge of them, but actually the American companies. It's a different world. But these people have tons of. Fidelity has billions of dollars, probably $1 trillion under investment. It's not their money. I have mutual funds, not many, because I don't think it's a good investment. I'd rather invest in stocks that I can understand and buy and sell and trade those at my discretion, rather than have some manager who takes a little percentage or cut fee and manage the funds for me. I do have a few mutual funds, but it goes back to the day when I first started investing, and I was a little bit afraid and tentative because I had no money and I wanted to learn how to get into the market. So what's American? Not American Century. I can't think of the name. They keep changing all the time. There's the Janus funds. I don't have any of the main ones. I used to have Evergreen. Evergreen was sold out. Now someone else owns it. I used to have USA Mutual Funds. They've sold out. Someone else owns it now. But I still have those funds. And I get a report on what they're investing in, the type of investments, and I see every share that they have when the annual report's prepared every year. So I don't know what the fascination is with these investment companies. They exist to make money for their employees, for their shareholders, and most importantly, for their clients who need to increase their wealth by investing. Okay. Don't they have mercs in countries? No, that's black water, not black rock. You're thinking of black water, Spikerhorn. Eric says, thanks, I rest my case. Rest your case about what, Eric? What are you resting your case on? You got a point there, but it gets very complex so very quickly. Got the story out, not the soldier, but the priest. I don't know what you guys are talking about there. Anyway, 66 likes, 80 people. We're up to 90 something here on the stream. That was pretty good for a while there. Yeah, no, there's look, I mean, people just, I don't know. It's BlackRock's an investment company. By the way, I actually was recruited by BlackRock. Could be fabulously wealthy, but I passed on it. I didn't want to be a middling sort of person making a lot of money living in Manhattan. I want to run things. I don't know if Eric Prince still has, that's Blackwater, Eric Prince, not BlackRock. BlackRock is an investment operation. So, yeah. I didn't want to be a middling person living in Manhattan, making a lot of money but paying a lot of taxes. Manhattan's not my cup of tea. I could live there for short term, 3-month gig or something like that, but long term, I couldn't live in Manhattan. It's just, it's too much. It's also too much of a target for wackadoodles, criminals, and other things. And it's gone so far downhill, it's not safe anymore. It's a den of inequity. It's a den of hedonism. It's just horrible. Times Square is disgusting. Naked people walking around with body paint on, naked, vaginas exposed, breasts exposed, cops not arresting them. He has a firm assisting Chinese companies in transportation, I think. Well, that doesn't help. Oh, about my pyramids. Thank you, Eric. Yep. Oliver says, good evening, Chris. How you doing? Well, I'm doing well. I'm answering some unusual questions today. I don't know if people like my answers, but I'm a historian. I'm a political scientist, so I'll answer them as best I can. People seem to be coming and going now that I stopped talking about the news, but we had news earlier today, so I just want to cover a few things. But again, back to that point, we started early in the broadcast, and this is my view. People look, and if here's something. It's interesting. Some people disappear; they don't like the view. Well, I listen to people that I don't like. I listen to people whose opinions I disagree with. So I would hope that people who disagree with me hang around. Not be rude, but hang around. S-Box says, great collaboration with MV and Simon. Love listening to you. Simon who? Yeah, thanks. I enjoy that. And that's an effort on my part, really getting together and doing that. Now, I really should have asked him to call it something else because Rugby Ascendant is my brand and it's on his channel. But Anyway, if we ever end this segment, he's going to have to not be able to use that name because it's my name. But he asked me what we should call it, and I hadn't thought about it. I told him the name of my channel. So, but he was nice. He made a plug for my channel this week. I don't think he's mentioned that before. Maybe it's in the credits below there. But today, you stole some ace country from Indians. The continent has some nice nature. I didn't steal anything from anybody, Spiker. I don't know what you're talking about. I was born in the 20th century, and I stole nothing. I was born into middle-income family and progressed to abject poverty from there, and then went on my own as an adult and made my own way and rose above that. So I know what you're talking about. I didn't steal anything from any Indians, whether they're Curry Indians or they're Native American Indians. I didn't steal anything. I don't steal. I earn, and that's how we roll around here. We earn. We contribute. We don't steal. So I'm not sure what you're talking about there, brother, where that comment's coming from. Didn't steal anything. I know you're being facetious about how beautiful the countryside is around me, but this land wasn't stolen from Indians. There were no permanent settlements here where I'm sitting. When Europeans arrived here, the creek was a seasonal location where Native Americans showed up. Well, the Apaches aren't from here, so the Apaches can say what they want. They lived on the other side of the continent. The people who lived here were very different. The Lenape were some of the Indians that lived here. Shawnee, a little bit further west of here. And so, yeah. But no one was actually occupying here. It's kind of funny. It's like Pretoria. Rename it Shawnee. There was no one occupying it on a permanent basis. The first permanent settlement was founded by truck boys. So that's why they called it, named after Andreas Pretorius. Same with Peter Maritzburg. That wasn't a settlement. They created one. Same with Nelspruit. Nelspruit wasn't founded until the 19th century. And it was founded by Afrikaners. They were no longer truck boys at that point. Yeah, so anyway, there are some locations here in the Americas where Native Americans were living, where settlements have been built in cities, but not many. Not many. Megaphone Sports. Yeah, I enjoy that collaboration. It's helping. I think I'm getting some more subscribers as a consequence of it on my... Okay, these little bastards here. These little bastards here. Get away. I think they're the noisy ones. There's these little bugs that came out. They're invasive species. They were here last year, and they're all over my property. I haven't seen my property yet this year, but they're here. I know you're just kidding. I want to highlight how massively, really cultural diverse your place is, while our people were actually established from one another by Dutch. I'm not really sure where you're going with that, Spiker Hunt, either. If we're talking about the establishment of the Afrikaner community, it's not Dutch. Maybe I'm misunderstanding your comment, but let's be clear about that. For those who don't know, the Afrikaner community is an amalgamation of multiple cultures and languages and ethnic origins. Chief among them are, does anybody know chief among them? What's my opinion on Nigel Farage? I think he's brilliant. I think Katie Hopkins is brilliant. I'm not so sure about Tommy Robinson. But can anyone guess what the single largest DNA composition of the Afrikaner people is? All the people. Oh yeah, mainstream cultures. Yeah. Anyway, well I'm on this tangent now, Spike on. So let me go ahead and continue with it because I enjoy this. Can anybody tell me the single largest? I know some of you know because I've told you before. That's right, Hendo. German. Single largest DNA contribution to the Afrikaner people today is German. After that comes Dutch, then comes Huguenot, and then after that typically comes Khoi and San. Somebody with 4 kids just rocked up. Anyway, yeah, people talking about we don't have replacement birth rate here. This Army officer's got 4 kids. Yep. Anyway, so all those folks came together, mixed, and formed this group over time. That's why you get some very different appearances. Look at Willy Engelbrecht's skin tone and appearance, compare it to Peter Steph Dutoit. Very different person. Dutch, French, Khoi, Sans. Yep, exactly. Yep. Oh, there were lots of wars back then. In fact, I'm reading a really good book which is complicated and confusing because all the names are so similar for historic Xhosa communities and for Khoi communities and Khoikhoi communities going back in the 18th century, the 19th century, written by John Laban. A guest on my program previously, John Laban, Dr. John Laban came on the program. I was able to contact him because he still had an active email address at in the university there in Canada where he was lecturing at, even though he's in South Africa, but now I'm unable to contact him. If anybody has any contact for John Laban, I'd be very grateful if you're able to send it to me somehow. Boy, my hair on my arms is really turning gray. It used to be blonde. That's not good. Anyway, but yeah, so I'm reading a book on his about the conflicts that took place from the establishment of European settlement in Cape Town up through the 9 Kosovo Wars. Yep. Have you read The Creation of the Board, Denny, by Vitz Weiss yet? No, I haven't. I'm not familiar with that book. Who was that? It was no, I haven't seen that book. Haven't seen that book. Yep. But yeah, so John Laban's book's pretty interesting. But like I said, it gets very complicated. A lot of these historic Kosovo figures have the same damn names or just a couple letters off and hard to pronounce, so it's complicated. I really would like to get John Laban back on the program and interview him about this book. I haven't finished it yet, but I'm getting close to the end. The only reason it's taking so long is it's so complicated understanding who these people are and their names. But everything I'm reading pretty much confirms what I knew in the past. Is it wrong to say that without Afrikaners, the British would not be industrialized as this day? Yeah, there's no doubt. There's no doubt that this is a trap that Helen Zilla fell into, but I don't really care. I'm not in the Democratic Alliance, and I'm a historian, so I'll tell you the truth. It's very likely that South Africa would not be industrialized, certainly not to the degree it is today, were it not for the Europeans who arrived there. They brought very different methods of economies, scales of economy. They brought different approaches to property ownership. Look, you can't successfully have a modern country in which you have communal land tenure. It doesn't work. And the proof of this is Peru. Peru, a very famous book by Hernando de Soto, not the 16th or 17th century explorer, but a modern day economist in Peru, Hernando de Soto. His book about how Peru extended land tenure to the landless serfs, the peasants essentially. And Peru's economy flourished as a consequence of that because people were given property ownership to land, which they didn't own. When a chief has control over land, they can arbitrarily kick you off the land, they can arbitrarily dismiss you, they can do whatever they want, and you have no recourse. And people say, yes, you do, but you don't. You don't have recourse. If your daughter doesn't sleep with the chief, then you're screwed. If your wife doesn't sleep with the chief, then you're screwed. Maybe you have to sleep with the chief. I don't know. If there's anything wrong with that. But the point is that arbitrary land tenure is not good. It doesn't accomplish anything. Also, in places that are marginal for agriculture or for other resources, you need large amounts of land. This is why you don't have olive groves or orange trees in the Northern Cape. It doesn't sustain that. But you have lots of that's not a word, lots of sheep, lots of goats and lots of sheep, because that's what the land can sustain. So you can't have communal land in that situation. With communal and with the previous forms of land tenure as they existed before Europeans arrived, you couldn't develop a modern economy. And that's what the ANC wants. They want to go back there. They want the government to control the land. They want themselves to be the arbiter of who gets what. Chiefs are outdated. I agree. What did I miss here? Europeans did industrialize South Africa. Yep. There's very suspicious ancient civilizations similarity between ancient Turkey and Southern Africa. Probably, after stating cataclysmic event hitting south of Madagascar. Africa has lots of culture that holds them back. Perhaps, but South Africa has lots of things that can propel it to an amazing level. I mean, frankly, at this stage, South Africa's economy ought to be approaching $1 trillion a year. It should. But the retarded growth of the economy, because the ANC has kept it back. The kleptocracy, the theft, the racist laws and legislation, the constant race hustling, the discouragement of foreign direct investment as a consequence of lawlessness, lack of electricity, crime. It's just unbelievable. And so I follow a Dutch motorcyclist. Yeah, you're talking about itchy boots. You have no idea how most of the place looks. She crossed borders that were rivers in a canoe. I have no idea how most of the place looks. Are you serious? Are you serious, Funk Dunk? I, who have lived in Tunisia, Liberia, Botswana, Malawi, Niger, Mauritania, Uganda, and Ethiopia, and have worked in over 35 African countries, I have no idea how most of Africa looks. Are you serious? I know more about Africa than Jeremy Clarkson or Itchy Boots. I'm not some rich investment banker from the Netherlands with bleachy blonde hair and blue eyes who rides around a motorcycle and falls off and makes videos and ignores people who ask for interviews. Not that I'm bitter about it. Yeah. So I don't know if that was directed to me, Funk Dunk, or it was just a general statement. People don't know about Africa. I don't know about Africa. Well, I know about Africa. I know about Africa. I've been to more of Africa than most Africans will ever see in a lifetime. That's what's so funny about when people come on my program and attack me. They know who they're talking to or who they're talking about. Again, I don't know what Funk Dunk was going there. I'm reading this in a sunny glare here, so maybe I got it wrong. Anyway, oldest human settles Zanzibar. No, the oldest human remains thus far we've found, Homo sapiens, not Homo sapiens, but hominids, is not in Madagascar or Zanzibar. It is in the Rift Valley. And then also in Chad, we found stuff from a couple million years ago from ancestors. So, okay. Chris has zero time for people trying to tell him he does know. Well, I mean, you can tell me again. So, Brower, I mean, you're laughing. I don't know if you're laughing with me or at me, but again, if I'm incorrect or you disagree with me, I have time for you. The other day, I misspoke about something, and Diane McMeekin corrected me. I was really joking, but came off as misspoken, so I accepted that. But I mean, seriously. No, that's why I didn't take offense, Proven Bullet. That's why I didn't know if you're laughing at me or with me. You're laughing with me. No, it is comical. Why don't Shivambu and Malema consult their counterparts in Burkina Faso? You're being facetious. Yeah, Itchy Boots. I mean, I like her content, but she gave me a lame excuse of why she didn't want to come on. So I started watching her stuff because my viewers mentioned it, and they asked me to get her on. So I went and watched her content, and I found it very compelling. I was actually kind of envious that I can't just drop my whole life and just go what she does, ride around a motorcycle. So I caught her program as she entered Botswana, and she was puzzled by some things in Botswana she didn't understand, and she said that in her broadcast. So I reached out to her to interview her, and I was going to talk to her and said, I used to live in Botswana, I'm an American, yada, 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 can you do an interview? And she said, no, I don't have time for that. And then she went back to the Netherlands after her trip, and I wrote to her again. She just ignored me. She said no. So whatever, that's her prerogative. She owes me nothing, but the woman's making a ton of money off of her channel. She had a horrific accident where she fell off a motorcycle. Very terrible situation. Horrible accident and terrible surgery in Africa. So thoughts out to her. It actually covered that and sent her good wishes and such. Best wishes. South Africa cannot grow if you have our biggest retail stores like Pick and Pay, killing the country, ridiculous prices. Yeah, but okay. So S-Buck, before you pick on Pick and Pay, no pun intended, or Checkers, you need to consider the whole supply chain. And so that inflation starts at the very beginning. The cost of energy, which is what drove all this up initially, is tacked on to goods and services. So the plastic that is the wrap around the meat that is in Pick and Pay, the meat that is produced on a farm in the Karoo, the sheep, the lamb, the inputs that go into that, the feed that goes into that goes to the feed mill, the fuel that takes to get from place to place, all the middlemen who have to have an income to survive, all of that adds up. So before you pick and pay, understand that they are passing on cost to you. They can only absorb so much. Let me give you an example here. Traditionally, now this is where it's so insane, and this is why I'm defensive of supermarkets, even though, like, for instance, my supermarket is charging $7.69 or $7.29 for a bag of Doritos. Not even a large bag, just a standard bag, like 11 ounces, which is half air. That's insane. I'm not going to pay $7 for Doritos. Not going to happen. So supermarkets traditionally, before they even accepted credit cards, which they started doing years ago, then they had to raise their prices. But traditionally, a supermarket has a margin of 1 to 3% profit. That means they're always on the edge of being unprofitable. Now compare that to Microsoft and Oracle, which have 70% profit margins. Every dollar that they invest, they get 70 cents more. Yeah, their profit is 70 cents of every dollar. Let's just put it that way. Of every dollar, 70 cents that Microsoft makes is profit. That's insane. But nobody's calling and screaming about how they're gouging consumers. Microsoft could fuel a global economy by stop being so greedy and reduce their margins by half to 35%. That would be tens of billions of dollars that flows back into consumer pockets. No, I realize, and I know you're frustrated by ShopRite, Checkers, and Pick and Pay. And you're probably going to say, yeah, but I can go elsewhere and find stuff cheaper. But you're getting lower quality goods or poor quality inferior goods. You're not getting the same things for those prices. So, look, I appreciate where you're coming from, and I agree with you. The inflation is outrageous, but it doesn't start with supermarkets. They didn't just decide to go, oh, we're going to charge you, this much for a pound of lamb or this much for a bag of rice. They have costs built into it. They got salaries, they got electricity, they got insurance, they got transportation, they got rental prices, they got all of that. All of that comes into play. So before we castigate ShopRite and Checkers and Pick and Pay, understand that's much more complicated. But that's Spock, I understand where you're coming from. South Africa is so liberal you can vote military junta parties into power. Your background sounds of the noise I hear in my head. You hear those noises in your head? That sucks. How do you feel about the latest news saying that Eskom is suddenly producing too much electricity? Well, I think it's probably partially true. And the reason it's too much electricity is because at least 6 gigawatts of consumption is now off-grid. So at least 6 watts of rooftop solar and wind turbines have gone off-grid because people couldn't rely on electricity. So it's just gone. It's just gone. Just gone. Yeah, so anyway. Just gone, man. So, yep. Just gone. Pyramids, however, is proof South American visit way too coincidental, very similar structures. Well, pyramids are a structure because of its inherent stability that are found all over the world, not just in Mesoamerica and in also in Egypt. They're found elsewhere too. But those, they were in Turkey. They had pyramids, not big ones like that, but they did have them. So yeah, but it is pretty strange. Maybe the aliens brought in the technology. I don't know. Australia pulling products off the shelves because the cost of basic ingredients is too high. Okay, I didn't do that, Spock. Manufacturers cannot manufacture a profit anymore. Yep. Still take massive issue with the fact that all of our good foods are exported and South Africans are left to eat the offcuts. Well, that's why you need a local butcher, man. You gotta go to a local butcher. It's traded up to Greece. What? Cost of product almost always doubles intermediary. Yep, Garrett, you're right. Farmers are mostly under pressure. The supply chain takes all the money. Well, that's true for every product. I mean, it's the same for coffee. So if you look at coffee beans, they are just a small portion of the cost. You go get a cup of coffee somewhere at what's the word I'm looking for? What's that coffee place? God, the other day I had it. Bootlegger Coffee. You go to Bootlegger Coffee and buy yourself a cup of coffee, get a cappuccino, and coffee. The coffee input of that, the coffee growers, is probably less than 5% of the actual cost. All the rest gets added up by middlemen and by bootlegger, by the transporters, by all that stuff. And then, of course, all the equipment comes in there. So, yeah, so that's just the nature of all this stuff. That's why commodities are not the business to be in. Only a certain number of people should be invested. This is why the ANC's concept of putting 1 million people on to subsistence farming is asinine. Those 1 million people will never be wealthy. Their offspring will never be physicists and doctors. A small number, but not majority. They won't be coders because they'll be tied to land that cannot make them wealth. I mean, unless they're digging, they suddenly find diamonds, but then the government takes that over because they claim all rights to minerals. So they're never going to get anywhere. Subsistence farming is a dumb idea. What pisses me off with the retailers is that they attribute price increase to fuel costs, but when fuel costs can get... to me, again, that's true because they're not honest about the total cost input. They just give the easy answer. Deputy President Mashatile says preferable wants South African Airways to get private. I don't know what you're saying there, Icono. He preferred South African Airways to privatize. Well, South African Airways should have been liquidated, not privatized. Liquidated. Yeah. Yeah, Spar. Are you back in the States? Yeah, I've been back in the States since June 25th. Something like that. I've been back for a while. I'm considering coming back to South Africa in a short term because of rugby, but I got to find some money. Foreign policy, tackling corruption, tackling incompetence, designating liberal and pro-business environment, setting policies. Yep. Chris, what happened to your recent upload? What upload is that, Oliver? What upload are you talking about? You're gonna see. I mean, guys, I do thousands of videos. What upload are you talking about? Living up to its work, Old Khaki denotes trust and safety since 1999, offering quality and style as authentic as the people who wear our clothes. Yeah, I am wearing. Where's that? Okay, Old Khaki, there you go. Pyramids should be the first structures. Okay, Miss Pumba. Okay, you must grow coffee trees in the backyard and haul in a single market. South African black and white middle class are basically the same. The wealth gap in South Africa is a population. Yeah, no, it's true. Oh, this little bastard's back again. Get away. Send him packing. There's bugs. With the federal lead of the VA, John Cena has succeeded in fixing the... No, he won't. It's much more complicated than that. He's not going to fix it. People are really battling Australia. People living out of vans and tents are growing. Well, it sounds like Los Angeles, Chris. Hey, Chris Holmes in from Australia. How you doing, man? Wallaby's going to get walloped again this weekend. Still funny, I say. Yeah, it's a huge cock up. All right, folks, I would love to stay longer with 90 people on the program and 92 likes. I appreciate you people can hit more likes there. But I do have to get back to work. I am doing consulting, and that's what I'm getting paid for. So that's my lunch. Thanks for being here. And cheers, everybody. I'll see you all later. I'm on the radio tonight with the Common Sense Conservatives. Take care, God bless, and be safe out there. Be sure to hit that like button. 93, you can do better than that. And please, leave me a note about what video is missing. I didn't see any video missing. Thanks.